Hello, my dear students of EECS2011 Winter 2022. You should have already received the last batch of the lecture videos for week number 12. And that's it. So we have covered 12 weeks of the topics related to the data structures. I really hope that you enjoy the journey. And that's about everything I could have covered for the course. I really hope that you learn a lot from me. That's really the biggest hope I have. Alrighty, so I think for this wrap-up lecture, I would just want to briefly summarize about what we have learned in this course, and I'm going to give you some advice, as I usually do for my students graduating from my course, about what you may actually consider doing maybe during the coming summer break to actually get yourself ready for the coming third-year courses, which will assume, of course, what you have learned already in this course. Let's now talk about, first of all, the summary about what you have learned. I think we have learned a lot in this course, which you should be proud of yourself that you have spent so much time digesting the materials and also start applying them for your endeavor. And we did a lot of practices on Java programming, especially on the JUnit tests. You can see the assignments and also programming tests. We actually do the task by giving to you the JUnit test cases. From there, you can work out exactly what to implement. Really try to practice this pattern over here for your future. I think this kind of specification-driven developments will be very valuable for your future endeavor, especially if you want to do something related to programming or design. And also recursion, we did quite many exercises in the Q&A, in the lecture, and also we emphasized that a lot also in the assignments and programming tests. So hopefully that also push you to maybe the next level for your understanding about recursion. If you didn't feel yourself not so confident about the recursion, definitely try to do something over the break before you get to the third year. I think recursion definitely is some technique you cannot avoid in your career. And also generics. We didn't really cover any lecture on the generics, but rather I just gave you the background study because that's really something you learn from the 2030, the Advanced OOP course. However, we actually did emphasize about generics a little bit in the lectures in the example, but especially for the assignments and programming tests. So you definitely want to make sure you also get used to generics. Use them whenever possible. That's something I gave you the basics, the introduction, and how much you really want to practice about generics is really up to you beyond the course. But I think generics is a very important technique you definitely want to keep practicing as you go. And what about data structures? We cover arrays, circular array, dynamic arrays, and also amortized runtime analysis, right? You can see there's so many stories that we have told about these data structures. Singly linked list versus doubly linked list, and also the comparison with them with the arrays, right? How you compare the various linear data structure, how they compare with the different operation for their running time. And also we talk about different ADTs, stacks, queues, double-ended queues, and also their application. Remember the postfix notation that we spoke about. And also we talk about so many details about the trees, general trees, binary trees, mathematical properties for binary tree, and also the search property, the high balance property, right? So many things. And also tree traversal as well, which I'll mention later. And in the final week, we spoke about priority queues and also the heaps data structure. From there, we actually derive the heap sort algorithm and also how you can implement a complete binary tree using an array, right? So these are all good stuff that you want to keep in your toolbox. Make sure you understand them very well, and whenever you need to use them, you can use them right away. What about algorithms? This course is not really meant to be so much emphasis about creating your own algorithm, but rather to really learn about the basic data structures or common data structures, so that when you get to 3101 in the third year, you will be able to devise your algorithms rather easily. So we talk about asymptotic analysis. Of course, you want to make sure your algorithms are correct and also efficient. That's about the asymptotic analysis we did in week 1. Binary search, and also trinode restructuring steps. Remember what the purpose is that for this trinode restructuring steps is actually for maintaining the high balance property for binary search tree by using rotations, right? That's something you want to review. We had so many details that's covered in the lecture for that week. And also, we talk about 5 different sorting algorithms for this course. I'm so glad I actually managed to cover every one of them because I believe so. These are the 5 most common sorting algorithms you will actually encounter beyond this course. You definitely want to make sure you understand each one of them very well. Understand the pros and cons, and also what kind of implicit assumption they make, and what might be the best case running time, and what might be the worst case running time. Right? Insertion sort, selection sort, merge sort, quick sort, and heap sort. And as a graduate from CS or software engineering, I think if you can understand these sorting algorithms very well, I think you might just also ace your programming interview if they ask you a question related to this. And also, we talk about tree traversal, pre-order, in-order, post-order. And beyond this course, right, that's about all the topics we covered. There might be some minor ones which I didn't manage to include in the list, but definitely, when you actually prepare for your accumulative exam, you want to make sure you review everything that we have covered in the course, in the lecture materials, in my iPad notes, in the Q&A, and also assignments, programming tests, right? So these are all the stuff you really want to keep reflecting on yourself about how useful they are. All right, and then let's now talk about my advice to you to go beyond this course. Of course, this course, EECS 2011, is a very fundamental course, but it's only the beginning point for you to really get yourself exposed to algorithms and data structure. What can you do before the 3rd year? I got 3 pieces of advice for you. Number 1, you can invest yourself, if you got some pocket money to spare, invest yourself this book. It's called Introduction to Algorithms. I think that's the very typical textbook for EECS 3101. So I think this textbook, they just released the latest version on April 5th, 2022. I purchased one myself from my pocket money. I think this one is a very worth having on your bookshelf. That one there actually summarizes all the major and common algorithms with their mathematical analysis, and also the pseudocode, not exactly in Java, but just pseudocode, which will be nice exercise for you to turn that into Java. So what I would suggest is, if you happen to get access to this book, go over data structure by data structure, algorithm by algorithm. You will see many things that we cover already in the book, but there are many more others that are not covered. So definitely you can study that yourself. Understand about the mathematical analysis that's put in there, and also read the pseudocode to understand what's really happening overall, and then implement it in Java. You know how to use the IDE, the Eclipse, IntelliJ, whatever IDE you prefer. And you know how to use a breakpoint, you know how to use the debugger, so you can implement in Java and debug yourself. That's the only way to really sharpen your programming skill. There's really no shortcut. And also, equally important is that you should really, every time you program your method, you just cannot assume it's automatically correct. It would be nice if that's automatically correct, but it's not the case. So you have to write JUnit test cases like how you will be given in the assignments and also the programming test. And also pass the JUnit test cases, and then do this bits by bits. It cannot be done in a single summer, but I would say that's a long time endeavor you should definitely invest yourself into. And number 2 is more about OOP, which I also suggested to my students in EECS 2030. I think in your EECS 3311, you'll learn about software design course. In that case, you're going to learn about one topic is about design pattern, meaning that you're going to solve problems that occur over and over in the software engineering industry, in which case you have to exploit polymorphism, dynamic binding, inheritance to really develop solution for your application. And this book over here, published many years ago, but it's a very, most like a Bible for design patterns. So definitely you'll be worth your money if you want to invest some book on your shelf. Right? Again, understand what the problem that's outlined there, and also read the solution. I believe that's in C++, not in Java, but you can definitely implement it in Java by adapting to Eclipse or IntelliJ, and also write your own test cases. So these are the 2 books I would highly recommend if you really want to do something at your own time over the summer. And finally, this is also one tutorial series I created for an earlier course I taught, which is called 4302, Compilers and Interpreters. So compiler is really about building a tool that will translate from one language to another. In order to do that, you need to have a very solid foundation from, for example, EECS 2001. where you learn about automata and also finite state machine and context-free grammar. If you haven't, that's okay. I got one tutorial series I created for my earlier students. If you find the interest in trying them, you can definitely go to the tutorial. It's self-contained, right? And once you build up the compiler, you can feel free to adapt it to something more sophisticated and feel free to put it on your CV, on your resume, to claim that you actually know how to build a compiler from scratch. And for those of you who might be interested in taking a course with me, again, I should be teaching this course quite regularly, maybe at least from maybe fall 2022. You can look it up. Right, and in that tutorial, you will see building a compiler will require skills and knowledge about how to build trees programmatically, how to use recursion to traverse the tree, to process the tree, and also the visitor design pattern, which was detailed in this particular book. It will be used quite substantially in the compiler. That's something I will also recommend you actually do your self-study. And it might be covered by your professor in EECS2011, but why the wait? If you can study and understand the material by yourself, why don't you do some self-study over the break? That'll be very worthwhile use of your time. All right, so finally, I just want to say whatever you learn in this course will be assumed in the third year. I really hope that my teaching really helps you grasp the basics about all the data structure we covered. Some topics which we didn't cover includes hash table. I regret that we didn't actually cover this due to the limited time. However, I managed to cover that in one of my earlier courses, 2030 in fall 19. You can simply click on the link if you're interested, learning about the basics of hash table. Go to weeks 10 and 11, you will see the recording, all the materials over there. Right? It's a normal teaching style that you might like, hopefully not dislike. And also the graphs, which not so regret about not covering that, because for EECS2011, your professor will be covering the graphs from scratch. So I think for that one there, just get yourself ready for that. And of course, if you purchase the algorithm book, which I advise you actually invest, in that case, you can also learn about graph algorithm yourself over the summer. And logic is really your friend. So every time we do any analysis about the correctness or efficiency for your algorithm, you have to know math pretty well. And so 1019, 1090, so I think these courses are not just dry, I think they are quite useful. You just didn't really know the context of application for your learning courses. So review them if you got a good notes on that. And do not abandon Java programming during the break. I think don't think about a course is only theory without any practice or the other way around. You should always try to link the two worlds together. Finally, I want to wish you all the best, and you can feel free to get in touch with me. It's almost like an online delivery of the course, so we didn't really manage to see each other in person. Later on, if you happen to be on campus, drop by my office and then say hi, and then we can chat about your progress. Already, I want to thank you again for all your participation and engagement with the course. Again, I really hope that you learn a lot from me. That's really my only purpose of making the lecture videos. And all the best to you, and good luck.